be the only thing on our screen. This one is not that hard, but it is a good chunk of points again, just because it's practicing so many little skills. So pay attention, do yourself the favor. This is worth 42 points today. It's not difficult, but make sure you're actually following along. So I can see right now there's 4 of you who are not on this screen, so get here. Yeah, you could. Yep. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at this first. So we are going to assume the position of 2 characters. We've got these 2 pigs. They have been set up on a blind date. Blind dates can often be kind of terrifying and weird. We've got Sharona and Dave. And they are on a date, and you get to write the story of their date, but you also are going to practice writing correctly formatted and believable dialogue. So, we need a little bit of background, because you have to make me believe that Sharona and Dave have believable dialogue. So follow along with me. Sharona is a lovely pig with light pink skin, blue eyes, and a minimal amount of sleek, blonde back hair. She always grooms her hooves to perfection and regularly gets pigicures, like a pedicure, but for pigs. She enjoys mud bathing, barn yoga, and long walks. Okay, let's be honest, waddles, because she's a pig and she's kind of fat. Waddles in the meadow. While she's dining on her favorite meal, you'll find her pail filled with only the most delicate ears of corn, crisp celery, and a sprig of parsley for garnish. When it comes to being social, Sharona is the center of attention, but when it comes to common sense, there's not much there. She's a bubbly young sow, but most of the air pockets are in her head, which is a euphemism for what? She's stupid, yep. So if we were going to boil that all down, Sharona likes being a little bit fancy. She takes care of her appearance, but she's kind of dumb, okay? But then we have Dave, who she got set up with. So follow along here. When the band starts playing Macho Pig, sorry, I know that's cringy, at the Animals Barnyard dances, everybody's mind turns to Dave. If pigs could drive motorcycles, Dave would have one. Dave, he struts around parading his full pig tee, like a goatee but for pigs, and noses through any muscle car magazine he can find in the garbage. He enjoys eating, sleeping, eating, watching cars drive by the farm, and eating. His favorite meal consists of 2 heads of rancid cabbage, rotten Hawaiian pizza, molded mashed potatoes, and spoiled pudding. Dave is very popular among his followers, a fleet of flies who constantly swarm. His odorous physique is a euphemism for what? Nope, he's stinky. Odorous, he's stinky. So, do you see how Dave and Sharona are very, very different? We've got Sharona, who takes care of herself and is kind of dumb. And Dave doesn't care about not being gross, but he's a little bit more of like a tough guy pig, right? So, you're going to try not to capture the essence of Sharona and Dave when you're writing the story, okay? I'm going to make you turn your screens around for just a quick second. There is a couple little tricks I want to go over. So yesterday we saw a little bit of this, but we didn't watch the part about making your dialogue believable, which is a huge chunk of your points today. So let's go ahead, screen facing forward, unless you're one of my creative writing 2 kids, and let's think about believable dialogue, because that's where most kids fail a little bit, if I'm being honest. The formatting isn't too hard, but believability is the harder part.
Able to do all these rules of dialogue.
Skip
That's
ahead.
sounds like an 80-year-old man. And I was like, story. I was so excited to go turn it. Able to do all these rules of dialogue, that's just one part of it. But being able to make your dialogue believable. So I'm going to tell you a story of Mrs. Cope's failing. So back when I had a creative writing class of my own, I had this story. I was so excited to go turn in. My teacher graded it and gave it back, and she said, I loved your story, but your 8-year-old sounds like an 80-year-old man. And I was like, oh, snap. I didn't think about making my dialogue believable. I needed somebody to tell me it's your job as the creative writer to make it seem natural. Because what we're doing as creative writers, we're making something totally fake seem like it's real. And that takes practice. It's easy to get better at, but most people aren't naturally good at that. So there's a couple of little tricks. Most people are pretty pretty informal.
Or colloquial.
Like if I came into class and said, "Good day, fair students, how art thou this fine
That's
day?"
not colloquial.
That'd be weird. That's way too formal. Most people are pretty informal. And most people, unless you're a teacher, you speak in really short bursts. So you shouldn't be having a bunch of lengthy speeches unless it's on purpose.
Or monologues.
Big one. Huge to make it believable. Each character should sound a little bit different. I'm not talking about accent here. I'm talking about things like the words they use. Maybe you have a character who says like all the time, or they say or a lot. Or maybe they stutter a little bit. Or maybe you've got like an old man who does speak a little bit more formally because he comes from a little bit different time. Maybe you've got a little kid who is really informal. Maybe you have somebody who's a character who lives in Texas. Or maybe you have a character who lives in Canada. Those
Exactly.
Texan and that Canadian are going to use slightly different words.
Or like something little, like a little kid being purposefully grammatically incorrect is a believable choice, right? Like my older sister, when she was little, she couldn't say her R's. So stuff like when she said purse, it sounded like pose. Stuff like that makes your dialogue more believable, and having each character sound a little different.
Right? So each character, you should ask yourself, if I took away the dialogue tag, if I didn't have that, and I just read the dialogue, does it sound like it all comes from the same character? And for a lot of 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, that's a big problem. That's a big piece of feedback I give a lot. I
just told that to a kid in 2nd period. I was like, look, if I get rid of all the Bob said, he said, she said, it seems like it's the exact same character. There's no personality showing through. And that's one of the things that you're going to practice with today's assignments.
If I took away all your tags, it sounds like it could all be the exact same character. So we want slight differences. Their personality should affect how they talk.
Like, for example, think of one of your teachers. Somebody shout out a teacher name. Okay, me, and then Miss Monson. Do Miss Monson and I have the exact same personality? No. So do we talk just a little bit different? Yeah, right? And that's what I'm trying to get at, is we want to see a little bit of a difference.
Lazy? Are they excitable? Are they really funny? Are they kind of weird? Are they a little bit dumb? Are they really smart, right? All of those little personality things should affect how they talk.
Okay, so let's stop right there on that. But hold on, before you turn your screens around. So, just like I did when you were in 6th grade creative writing, there's a rubric on this assignment. It seems like a lot. It's not that difficult, but you do have to pay attention to detail. So when I grade this, I literally have this open in one half of my screen and your story open in the second half of my screen, and then I just click the box that you actually earned. So it's not a secret at all. I'm going to show you this one in just a second. Is it believable? Just like I talked about, that's worth 10 points, just believability. Did you use quotation marks just like we practiced yesterday? Is the punctuation inside the quotation mark just like we practiced yesterday? Are you using tags just like we practiced yesterday? Are you separating the tag and the dialogue with a comma just like we practiced yesterday? Are you switching between characters? And that's the one big thing that we didn't practice yesterday. And so I wanted to point this out one more time. Every single time it switches between characters talking. See right here? It starts a new line and you end it. Starts a new line and you end it. Even if the character is just saying one word, you still, every single time, it switches between characters. Start a new line and you end it. So that's the one big thing we didn't do yesterday, so be aware of that one. And then this first one says, you fixed the 17 mistakes in the second paragraph of the story. So let's look at that, okay? So after we went over, like, who are Sharona and Dave, then here's your directions, okay? So the first direction, you're going to read the short paragraphs that I wrote for you, and you're going to make corrections to the dialogue in the second paragraph. It's this highlighted part. So there's no mistakes in the first part, but there's lots of mistakes in the second part. There's literally 17, and you have to fix them. So you're going to carefully add the missing punctuation and fix the formatting mistakes. It's not only missing punctuation, but it's also formatting mistakes. And then look at the second direction, and then we're done. So it says finish the story. Write at least 10 more sentences of the story. If you don't include any dialogue, you're going to lose almost all the points for today. It's always shocking to me when that happens, but remember how much of the rubric was about dialogue? So if you don't have dialogue, I have to clicking 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. So make sure you have dialogue, just 1 second. So you're going to finish the story. You're going to try and have correctly formatted and believable dialogue. 5 of your 10 sentences have to be dialogue to get points.
So you can like have other stuff happen in the story as well, but you also have to include dialogue. And remember, I want to see that Sharona and Dave sound a little bit different because they have very, very different personalities. And ask your questions before we look at the story itself. Yeah. So yeah, this kind of double spacing is easier for the reader to read. So that is correct. That is not part of it. So instead, just focus on the other stuff. Okay. So here's the story, and you have to finish the story. On their blind date, Sharona and Dave are going to the finest restaurant on the farm called Swine Divine. Sharona arrives at the restaurant first and eagerly awaits her first encounter with Dave. Dave trots to her table and asks, "Are you Sharona?" Sharona reacts with a snort of surprise. "Yeah, why are you asking?" Sharona mumbles, looking down at her freshly painted hooves, colored bright pink. "It's me," he answers proudly, "your date." "Dave, are you surprised?" "You are in charge of the story. I've had like pig cannibalism. I've had like they end up married. Like you get to bring that story to whatever direction you want. But I want good dialogue, people. Go ahead and get started. Questions?
Okay, so I know it says
Yep.
Do we have to make them like pig pigs? Can we say like hands, tails?
Sure, you can personify them however you would like. Okay, good question.
I'm not focusing on it.
Well, that's fine. Totally fine. Yep. In this highlighted spot, there are 17 mistakes. Yeah. Exactly. One quotation mark is one. Or two. Yep, stuff like that. Stuff like starting a new line and indenting every single time it switches between the characters talking. That's also wrong. Yeah.
So, what was I gonna say?
Gee, that teacher finally calls on you and you're like, I can't remember
Yeah,
anymore. Okay, if you remember, I'll help you. So you've got plenty of time, but start with the mistakes, then work on the story, okay? And have fun with it. I've had some really weird Sharona and Dave blind date shenanigans.
Oh yeah. 10 sentences. Do I have